Hello everyone, this is Vani Priya from Marla. Today we have Kavita Kalyan for our series for Navratri. She is director of design at TCS and also author of fiction. And she's had a wonderful journey with Devis herself, which we are going to talk more about today. Let's go to Kavita. Hi Kavita.
Hi, Vani, and it's a pleasure to meet you again.
Likewise.
And thanks so much for this. Wonderful.
Right. So as I just mentioned, you're director of design and you're also author and you're also a lot of things in between. So where did all of this journey originate, right? How did you get into putting all these different pieces of the puzzle together?
Well, it all goes back to when I was at design school. And design school was predominantly more from, learning, graphic design, which later on evolved into experience design, which is what my, core is at workplace from the design perspective. But simultaneously, I also had the first view of structured learning when it came to temple architecture, sculpture, Indian art predominantly. So I was really fascinated with the whole with the whole the jigsaw puzzle of how it is spread across India.
It's true.
In sculpture and in temples across the board in scriptures. So it took me my own journey to first start with understanding. I started with the cult of Shiva. I was reading a lot about that. I spent a good amount of time, about 15 years, just doing that. It's just been in the recent last 5 to 6 years that I've kind of graduated to understand the Devi herself.
Right.
But all of it started there. So my journey for both design as well as for understanding the faith per se, both of them started at the same time, actually. Very surprisingly, it started at college. Structural understanding of both to unearth how the whole thing has evolved in this country over a period of time chronologically.
Right.
Started there.
When you say it started at college, right? I mean, you take my own example, right? I wanted to be an entrepreneur at some point in life. Then there was a different understanding and perception of what entrepreneurship means as a teenager or somebody just out of college.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis what I understand it right now, right? I'm sure that journey for you definitely happened with a lot of things that you just spoke about. What do you think is the major difference that you realize that point in time and right now when you look back, like, were you right, were you wrong? How does that translate to you?
I was very crazy about art history on one side. I also knew that it wasn't a very paying field.
Very true.
But the other side of it, my core was anyway design. And therefore, I never left that path.
Right.
And somewhere along the way, I actually started off initially in advertising. And I didn't stay there very long because of the whole dot-com boom that happened at that point. And the jump was into the IT industry thereafter. And subsequently, I've stayed in the IT space. And that journey, along with this, kind of came together. I was focusing on the art side of it for a long time. And for whatever call of fate, I was very attracted to the...
Call of the Devis rather than the fate.
Yeah, I would say that. I was more tilted towards Shiva because he wasn't limited to the 10 avatars. He had many more. And I at least counted about 25 plus.
Wow.
And I haven't finished counting. So
Sure.
I don't know when I'll come to the next one. So there was so much about Shiva we did not know.
Right.
So I spent a sizable amount of time just understanding that. And I used to blog a lot. I
Wow.
blogged about 15 years before I transcended into writing, into going into a book.
Wow.
So yeah, that journey of writing for 15 years shaped up a lot of my writing skills actually.
So writing, right? When it comes to writing, when did it occur to you that, hey, I have to write all of these things, I'm doing it well, let me put it across into a book and then publish it? There are multiple phases there, right? So how did you get to that mindset that you have to publish stuff?
I actually started publishing a blog. I started writing.
Nice.
So I already knew quite a lot on Shiva iconography. And I was looking at it from a very art historical perspective, not from a religious perspective. I had my lens was very different. and
Right.
therefore the temples that I would refer to were more historically famous, not necessarily religiously famous. So what I used to do is I used to spend a lot of time scouting around the entire countryside for different types of temples that showcase different elements of Shaiva tradition itself. And I didn't stick to any one part of the Shaiva faith. I was looking at different aspects of it. So, it could be anywhere from, yeah, I was talking to you earlier about the Samaya tradition and the Kola tradition.
Right.
There are also the Tantrikas, there are, the Nagas, there are the Aghoris, there are different Pashupata cults. There are different cults that have grown over time in this country, So a lot of it happened during the medieval period. So that is like a very rich space to work with sculpture and with architecture. So I was spending a lot of time documenting all of this. And writing little blogs on each one of it. So I spent a good amount of time just doing that, just for the heck of it. I was just enjoying myself, discovering the internet, discovering writing, and it was a nice pastime for me. It took me, and then I started getting an audience. And I started getting some loyal audience, which was very interesting. People who were waiting for me to post the next blog, which could be from anywhere, talking about anything. So somewhere along the way, I evolved as a person in 15 years, moving from architecture, moving away from sculpture. I started going towards the scriptures. Then I started breaking down scriptures into various aspects. I started pulling out stuff from different places, putting them together. Just an example, like if I had to talk about Kama, I would talk about how Adi Shankaracharya depicts Kama. How does Ravana look at Kama? Okay. How does Brahma look at Kama in the Kalika Purana? So there are different aspects of Kama's character that different scriptures have spoken about. So I was basically collecting from everywhere and saying, and therefore this is what Kama is all about. And then the relationship of Kama with Kamakshi Amman, because both of them are in the area of love, depicted in green.
Right.
The parrot symbol, the iconography is in the parrot. So bringing all of this together, it's like, it's not like there are 10 different things. And it's like you got the whole jigsaw puzzle all spread out. I'm just looking at different aspects of scriptures,
coming together,
bringing them all back together into little blogs.
Correct.
So that, over a period of time, kind of transcended into a book, which, I just
That's
wanted
fiction,
to
right?
write.
So
Yeah,
there
that took its time.
right. So your blog, when you talk about it, is a lot about research,
Yes.
what exists there, your interpretation, stuff like that. Fiction is
Something else.
Something else, right? It's a different ball game altogether. So how did that transition of, okay, I'm wearing a hat of a fiction author, how did that happen? It's a different skill set all put together, right?
Yes, it is. See, the thing is this. When I started writing the book, first manuscript, I thought I'd done it all. Clearly, I hadn't.
It came back.
It came back big time. I had done about 80% documentary, 20% story.
Okay.
And my editor just told me, flip it.
80%
And he said,
story.
80% story, 20% documentary. So it took me, it was about, I must have spent about 10 years writing that manuscript over a good period of time. And he just said, start again. So it took me another 1.5 years to flip it more into a fiction and a
Less
lot
of a
less
documentary.
of a documentary. And I did learn how to story tell at that point. I had to go through my own learning at that point. I had evolved from the perspective of understanding scriptures and the faith, but writing, I had to deal with it differently. Took me some time to get there.
Right. Okay. Flipping on the other side, right? A lot of people ask me, how do you write and then run a business and do all this, right? So when I always say it's all a continuum. It's not that I do this avatar and then I'm not like I'm not god or goddesses where we do avatars, right? It's just so when I take your story as a parallel, right? I think the baseline has been patience, research, getting in depth, and all of that. If I can put word your entire journey in a couple of words. How do you take all of those values that you spoke about and take it to your corporate life? So how does Kavita translate all of these value systems into that? Verma? Okay. Spam. Chiri, I'll redo that part alone. Okay. When I listen to your entire journey, right, it's the kind of themes that pop into my head are perseverance, patience, a lot of research, getting in depth, right? Many a times when we start getting into an interest, it becomes superficial. You jump into something, but very few get in depth, do more and more research. It's like this entire trail where which we usually do in YouTube. You see one video, you want to know more about it, go to the next one and stuff like that. But you've taken that kind of a thought process into a different level and got in depth about goddesses, cults, from iconography to understanding the gods themselves, and the thought process behind how these ideologies came into existence, right? Now, taking all of those values, how do you translate, or how does Kavita take all of these that she's imbibed from all of this kind of a journey, and take it to your daily work? Because I think it's a continuum. You are not one different person and then you became this other alter ego kind of thing. It's just one person who does all of these things, right? So how has this value that you've earned during this journey helped you into becoming successful in your corporate life and your work?
It's at a very subtle level.
Okay, that's a very subtle answer.
I will start there. I will set the foundation there. It's a very subtle level. See, the bottom line is, the sooner you discover that you have a purpose, the better the start. So thankfully for me, I didn't have to spend too much time searching.
Right.
I knew from a very early age, that design was always part of me, and I had also discovered this aspect of wanting to do a lot of research on a reasonably dry subject, actually, for the rest of the world. But I took to it like a fish to water for whatever reason, and I realized that one thing I saw common between both of them is, if I had, in the digital space, when I talk about design in digital, if I had a thought on something or an innovation that we were looking at, you have to spend time with it to basically evolve it, spend time with it to bring it to a certain level of maturity,
Right.
that will actually make it tangible and bring it to the front to everybody else. Even in your mind, it needs to do that journey. You need to live with it for a while, keep contemplating on it. And then when you feel that you have actually arrived at something tangible, that's when you go out there and story tell it to somebody else.
Right.
And then they get the hang of what you've been thinking about. Now, this whole thought process can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months, 4 months. It depends how long it goes and how deep you want to go into it. So in the design space, it was a lot of experience design, a lot of UX solutioning for various customers. Of course, we were working with a timeline in that space. I didn't have all the luxury.
I was going to come
of,
to that.
you
All
know?
of the audience here who are in IT and
Yeah.
the services industry, there's always a timeline, right?
Yes, there
like
is.
tomorrow. So how do you convince that kind of a pressure that's there with this kind of a mindset?
You're not thinking for the first time.
Right.
You're
That's
thinking
true.
periodically. You're constantly
Which means you have to
thinking.
be at that level, right? An expert. It will not come to a novice
You
when
just keep learning. We're never
Right.
over with expertise, right?
Right.
You're just always learning something new, because our industry is such an area of flux. There's always something new that's coming in. I mean, last year everybody was talking metaverse. This year everybody's talking Gen AI.
I know.
It just keeps changing. We don't know what's coming next year.
true.
So you have to keep coping with what's coming as an emerging technology. And while you're doing that on one side, that transformation is happening over there. So it's not, whether it is about looking at ancient scriptures and trying to find out the value of life as we see it today, spiritually or religiously, or whether you want to look at digital transformation in the design space with emerging tech, it all starts with a thought.
right.
At the end of the day, you're human, you're thinking, and that thought has to evolve with you.
You have to give it
And there
time
will
to
come a-
evolve.
Yes, and I'm sure you've gone through the same thing. So that is the origin from where. That's why I said it's a very subtle state that you have to be in, where you're constantly thinking about it. And once you've got your gray cells rolling and they are very active, you lose the fear that you're not going to get there. So
Absolutely.
time doesn't bother you. Whether your deadline's tomorrow, whether your deadline's 1 week from now, really doesn't bother you, because you're so used to spending time with it, thinking over a cup of coffee. It's always there. You're always doing it subconsciously, and then that answer comes. So I do spend a lot of time with me time, where I just put stuff into my head. I look at a lot of inspiration, and then I let myself be.
How do you
know?
keep your sales guys at bay? And they keep
Oh,
asking you-
sales guys, Oh, that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
Because they actually wait for something to come from me because um, I do my initial research. I take all my raw material. I go and look up inspiration. I look up all sorts of various types of design styles. So whether you're looking at various types of UX solutions or whatever it is, all of that inside, and I just give it a break for some time. I just take a break from everything because the brain needs time to process.
That's true.
And the more you trust your mind to process it and come out with something, when your mind comes out with something and you shape it up thereafter, you sculpt that thought thereafter. That is a wow feeling you go through very often. And if you kind of encourage yourself in that space, there's no fear at all of meeting deadlines. You will get there eventually.
Of course, we will get there. Okay, so
No, you'll get there with a wow factor.
I'm sure. So, as a hook to that, if you were to give the audience 3 quick tips on getting to that wow factor, like in 3 quick sentences, what would that be?
The very first one would be, be a thinker. You might be a doer right now. You might be waiting for someone to tell you what you need to do next. But my suggestion is you need to evolve from a doer to a thinker. And once you become a thinker, once you set yourself in that space, you'll feel a lot more confident with yourself because you now have the answer to every question if you keep evolving in that space. At this moment, this has also been my journey in the digital space. It has also been my journey to become a thought leader in the space of experience design. So it's a lot of thinking that I just keep doing, constantly. And that is really where it is. So you need to spend time with yourself. You need to spend time looking up things. Do a lot of reading. Reading helps. Reading anything helps. I spend a lot of my time either reading on design or reading on scriptures, both. So eventually I swing between the two based on what I need, what the need of the hour is. So that is a very important thing. And that you need to evolve in that space. That is very, very important.
So, Kavita, you know a lot about Devis, Durga, cults and stuff like that. So, I'm not going to ask you a very typical question about the forms of Devi and stuff like that I would normally ask otherwise. It would be like showing the torchlight to the sun. So let me not go down the path. According to you, if you were to relate to one avatar or one form of the Devi or the supreme power, who would that be and why?
There isn't any one particular form, but let me just go down the lane myself. The way I've been looking at Devi, the way I've been researching on Devi is I started with Kamakshi, actually. Kamakshi took me towards Kamakhya, both of whom are synonyms of each other. And the more I delved into Kamakhya, which is also a reason, my research is also because of book 2, I'm headed towards, I'm trying to go more towards Ardhanarishwara, and that led me down this garden path. So when I was studying a lot more about Kamakhya, Kamakhya herself has got 5 forms.
Wow, okay.
Okay. And those are all the forms of Parvati. So Sati was reborn as Parvati.
Nice.
Okay. And when Sati's body was destroyed, the 51 Shakti Pithas, Kamakhya is one of them.
Wow, okay.
Okay, that's the relationship you have there. And the shrine of Kamakhya basically talks about 5 forms of the goddess herself. Okay. So, and each form of the goddess has a color to attribute it to it. So Kamakhya is all red.
Wow. Okay. I'm in color code for Kamakhya
Yes,
today.
you are. So Kamakhya is all red. Okay, then you have the white form, which is Gauri.
Right.
You have the yellow form, which is Tripura Sundari.
Right.
Then you have the green form, which is Sharada. Okay, and then you have Kamakshi.
Right.
Okay, so you also have the Kali form, which is a dark form of her.
Right.
Okay, so there are different nomenclature for the same goddess, and these are 5 major forms. And for whatever reason, I was very tilted to Kali more as Dakshini Kalika.
Okay.
Okay, so she is depicted in a slightly more aghora form than a calm form. So somehow I am very attracted to that goddess. There's a lot of energy, and much as there are a lot of her depictions are very terrific.
I know.
And they can kind of
Scare you off.
they might, but that's where your bhakti steps in.
Right,
And
right.
there have been a lot of great saints who have taken to, writing a lot of poetry on them. Ramakrishna,
Right.
Ram Prasad Sen. There are a lot of great poets who have written in their space
Hmm.
with respect to Kali. So I did start my journey earlier on with Tara. I did go to this little remote town in the north of West Bengal. It's called
wow.
Tarapeet.
Okay.
And Tarapeet, Kali Ghat, and Kamakhya are very connected to each other.
Okay. It's a nice
In the-
triangle.
yeah.
And they're all in Assam, West Bengal
Very
area, right?
Bengal cult of worship. And Durga Puja is very common in this space. So I have spent a lot of time studying about this aspect of the goddess as well.
Right.
So where do I tilt? I tilted towards Kamakshi first, then I tilted towards Tara, then I tilted towards Kali, and then I tilted towards Kamakhya, and now I'm with all of them.
I can see the
all
entire
of-
journey with the Devis with you, and it's very different.
It's right there, and different aspects of the goddess come out simultaneously. So it has really been an all-encompassing journey trying to understand each of these goddesses, and that's why even Navratri now has a very different meaning for me than what it used to be earlier. So I am just re-looking at faith in a very different lens.
Okay. And that was my next question. How has Navratri been 20 years back, and what do you think about Navratri today? What comes to your
Navratri is okay. 20 years back, I mean, much earlier than that. When I was a little girl, it was all about dressing up and
Going to golus.
going from one golu to another, and socializing a lot. But as I grew up and started understanding, started reading up about things, I slightly got a little disillusioned by the way the current dilution of the principle is there in society. While the worship is, it takes to what the books actually prescribe ritualistically, but it's still slightly incomplete.
Right.
In today's social fabric, it is slightly incomplete. But when you go into the depths of it, I am starting to see, a variation in the faith itself. Within our faith itself, I'm seeing a
Right.
slight variation. So,
Good variation, bad variation.
no, there is no good and bad about it.
Okay, it's just a
There
variation.
is just a variation. It is, it's not the same size fits all. It's
Correct,
like that.
correct.
So there are different types of belief systems. For example, you have the Samayachara way of worship. Then you have the Kaulachara way of worship. Then when you dig further, you get the Vaishnavachara worship, you have the Shaivachara worship, you have the Vedachara worship, you have the Dakshinachara worship. So there are different forms of worship that you can basically ascribe to understand your own self. Bottom line, when you bring all of this together, it's not whether this is better than that or that is better than this. They do have their independent ways of worship. Like Vaishnavachara will be more community driven, and Samayachara will be more orthodox in
Right,
one
right,
particular way of looking at it, whereas Kaulachara will be orthodox in another way of looking at it. They might not combine each other. So the Kaulachara way will be tilted more towards the Ugra Rupa of the goddess, whereas
Right.
Samayachara is more towards the Saumya Rupa of the goddess.
Got it.
One does not supersede the other. I mean, each
Just
one is
different versions.
different ways
And
of
perceptions.
reaching the goddess.
Right.
You decide which one works for
Works
you.
well for you. Absolutely.
That's what it is. That's where I would land the whole thing. When it comes to actual Devi worship, there are just three parts to it. If you have to look at it at the gross level, you are looking at it with actual ritual. The ritual is basically to get your senses and your mind and everything onto one point of focus. When you're looking at it at a slightly more subtle level, which is at the mantra level, you don't need the paraphernalia anymore.
Right.
You're working with sound syllables, you're working with bija mantras. And when you go to a far deeper, subtle level, it's no longer in the physical space, it's completely mental. So you're in a mind, your mind is completely merged with the goddess. So at that point, it really doesn't matter what happens on the exterior.
Absolutely.
You're completely internalize the entire experience with the goddess. So it's very unique to you. Your experiences are yours, and your definition of the goddess is
It's
yours
also
alone.
yours. Absolutely.
That's where it ends.
Absolutely. Great Kavita. So, if you want to leave the audience with a wish for Navratri, what would you leave them?
I think in the spirit of the festivities, I would seriously say that there is one part to have do it as a community, bring society together, from meet people and all of that. But I would also say that there is a relationship that you need to build with the goddess, and I think it is a very vital thing for us because it is for our own evolution as people, for our own spiritual career, if I may put it that way. It is a very necessary aspect for us to know who we are and what our purpose is, and that relationship with the goddess is vital for us to find that answer. I would really request everyone to spend a little more me time with the goddess this Navratri. It is totally worth it.
Absolutely. I mean, at Arla, we are trying to do like scratch the surface to get things to kids and get started with what our roots are, where we are leaving things behind that, so that we take it to the next generation as well. Thanks a lot for your time, and I learned a lot personally. I know I've heard a lot of these things from you in the past, but this has been a very different setup and a very formal outing between the two of us to talk about these things and also share with a lot wider audience. Thanks a lot for your time, and happy Navratri, by the way.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So, Kavita, this is a small memento from Arla and myself. This is just to give a background. This is a goodie bag that we put together. It's a tote bag, rather. It's got the 9 symbolisms of what the Navadurgas meant to me. So, I didn't want to put the Rupams there. And this is, of course, the journey of the Devi's coloring book. You can give it to any kid, or you can do it yourself.
I saw this and I think this is such a brilliant initiative of yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Really, because with the way digital is taking over,
I know, I know.
I think the children need to know this as a part of it. I was like, that is so important because they need to
Absolutely.
it's a very you're so good.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm trying to get all that from all the Rupams that we see every day. So they are all the inspiration. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
This is really lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.